शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये दक्षिणामूर्तिसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गणपति बप्पा जय श्री राम। So last time we had seen last couple of weeks we saw how Rama won over Kharadushna, how there was a split second battle and he killed almost 14,000 people in that split second battle. We also saw how Shurpanakha and Akampana come and describe their side of the events to Ravana, and how Shurpanakha chooses to selectively give an account of the events in such a manner that Ravana, instead of now looking at a revenge against Rama and Lakshmana, is now looking at seeing Sita and getting her. So the whole focus has got now shifted from taking a revenge against Rama and Lakshmana, has now shifted to Sita. And that is what Shurpanakha wanted. So if I were to technically analyze Ravana, Ravana was a Brahmin by birth, a mix, a hybrid of Brahmin and Asura, right? So there was very little Kshatriya gun that he really had, okay? A Kshatriya wouldn't have done something that Ravana now plans to do, right? One. Two, by nature, although he's a brave man, he's a very intelligent man, somewhere deep down he is also covered. If you have seen how he dealt with Kartivirya-Arjuna, how he dealt with Vali when he got defeated, you know, he ends up making a political alliance with him and then comes out of it. And the manner in which he comes now to abduct Sita, if you were to really analyze him, it is not something that a Kshatriya, a person who's more war prone, would take as a recourse. But that is what Ravana was. Ravana was a demon. Ravana was a wicked man. So he necessarily was not really following any dharma, was not following rules. And that is what characterized Ravana as a person. So with an intense wish of seeing and to make Sita his own, now Ravana leaves Lanka and now comes to Tamil Nadu, which is the state adjoining Lanka. He comes and meets his mama. Mama is maternal uncle. He comes and meets his mama. Who's his mama? His mama is Maricha. Right? So it is the same Maricha who was thrown thousands of kilometers away into the sea by a single shot of an arrow by Rama, who was just 12 years old when he had gone to protect the Vishwamitra's penance. When he killed Tataka and Subahu, he left Maricha to be alive, to tell the account, right? He always leaves one person to tell the live account of what happened. So Maricha was that person who fell into the sea. Now that person, having God face the brunt of Rama's weapon, see, when a God touches either through his hand, feet, or by eyes, or even by weapon, knowledge automatically comes, okay? He becomes wise, he becomes a sannyasi. Okay, Maricha becomes a sannyasi, a demon becomes a sannyasi, and is doing penance in Tamil Nadu in one of the forests under a banyan tree. And he is happy about his life. The way it is going, he is very happy. Now Ravana comes in search of Maricha because he wants Maricha's help in doing something. When he comes and sees Maricha, Maricha asks Ravana, what gets you here, Ravana? What do you want? Ravana asks him, have you seen or heard of Rama and his wife Sita? The moment Maricha hears the word Rama, he falls from his seat. He's trembling. He said, there are only two Ra that I am really totally scared of. One is you, Ravana, and the other is Rama. I am totally scared. Why did you even utter his name? I don't want to even hear about him. I am done with that person. So no, I want you to do something and I want you to help me with something. He says, I have already taken sannyasa, don't even come to me, I don't want to do any help, and you are already talking of Rama, which means you are up against a very formidable opponent. I don't want to be a part of this at all, you go and search some other relative and take help from there. Ravana says, no way, you have to help me. He says, what is it that you want? He says, I want to abduct Sita. Then have you lost it? Do you even know who that lady is? She is daughter of Janaka, daughter-in-law of Dasharatha. She belongs to Ayodhya Rajya, Kosala Rajya, and she is the wife of the most powerful person on earth. Do you know what happened to me? I have already told what happened to me. So I don't know anything. I want you to abduct and I want you to help me in that entire plot. Or I will kill you. So Maricha is now only left with two options. There is only one option. He is going to die. Anyways. So Maricha says, if I have any way to die, I would rather die in the hands of Rama and have some chance of going to the heaven rather than die at your hands and be in hell anyways. So he says, what is it that you want me to do? So they devise a plot. And Maricha then gets on with his work. Now what he does, before he goes, okay, just as he is about to leave, Maricha utters this. He says, Ravana, I will anyway get killed. But understand one thing, what you are up to doing, you are not only going to get killed, it's only a matter of time you are going to join me. You are going to become the reason for the entire Asura clan to be killed. You are going to become the reason for the widows of the Asura family who are going to wail. And you are going to be the reason. What you are going to do now is going to cause all of that in the future. That is the curse that Maricha gives to Ravana, and he goes with his work. He utters another thing. He says, Vinasha kale viparita buddhi. Okay? What happens when a bad time comes, the person, before even the bad time comes, the mind gets clouded. Your judgment gets clouded. You start doing the wrong things even before bad times have occurred to you. And bad time gets accentuated because of the wrongdoings that you are doing. It's anyway going to come and it further gets accentuated. Now that is what Maricha tells Ravana, and then he gets on with his work. So know what happens in Panchavati? Again a beautiful morning. Rama, Sita, Lakshmana are doing their work. Sita is sitting in the veranda. Rama has plucked a few beautiful flowers and is put it into small garlands. And Sita is wearing it on her ankles, on her wrists, on her arms. If you have seen those photographs where Sita will have these flowers, bangles of flowers on her ankle and on her wrists. So Rama is kind of putting them into small garlands and helping her wear that. Lakshmana, as usual, is busy with his few feet away standing and sharpening his arrows, always battle ready, right? Sharpening his arrows and sword and stuff like that. So one thing I missed in the earlier portion, when I told Lakshmana didn't sleep for 14 years. So actually there are two versions to it. One, which is a bhakti version, says that he didn't sleep for 14 years. That gives you a lot of good feeling, it gives you a feeling of devotion. The kind of devotion that Rama had Lakshmana had for Rama, right? That is the kind of bhakti that evokes. But at the same time, the truth probably is somewhere in between. So what happens when he didn't sleep is a truth, but he didn't sleep at all probably is not that much true. What would have probably happened is something like this. So when you have somebody who's not well in your family, my father was took seriously ill in his last 15 days before his demise. And he had a lung infection. We had two attendants to take care of him round the clock, 12 hours. But what used to happen in the night is, I used to get up every 2 hours, okay, just to see whether he's okay, whether the attendant has not slept away and he's wanting something and he's not able to wake up the attendant. So that anxiety, the fact that you have somebody who's not well, who's breathing heavy and he might need help, made me get up every 2 hours. What ended happening is I didn't get enough sleep, right? So if my brother was to call me, how are you? I said, I didn't have sleep yet. That's what you will end up saying, right? I didn't sleep at all. What effectively means when you say I didn't sleep at all means I didn't sleep well. I slept in between, but it was a disturbed sleep, always an alert sleep. You have not slept in deep slumber, which is what Lakshmana did. He was in a constant alert mode every 1 or 2 hours you get up saying, okay, is everything okay? He will check whether things are okay and there are no bad things happening. He'll again go to sleep, again 1.5 hours, again get up. So that way he will probably spend 14 long years, which is also equivalent to not sleeping. But I thought I'll anyway give you that aspect of it also. So that's the way Lakshmana actually lived for 14 years. So they are happily spending their morning, and there comes a golden deer. Now this Maricha has taken a form of a golden deer with a studded diamonds in his spots. It's all made up of diamonds. Completely unnatural deer. Okay. Sita sees it as a distance and suddenly gets engulfed with a desire to have the deer. Okay. And she says, Rama, I want that deer. And Rama, without the second thought, gets up in order to ensure that he gets the deer. Now Lakshmana, who is a few feet away, immediately sees what Sita has said and what Rama is trying to do. He sees the deer and he says, wait Rama, Bhabhi, this doesn't seem to be a natural deer. It seems to be, there is something amiss over here. There is something that is wrong. One, this deer is not behaving like other deers. Deers generally, if you've seen, it never remains in one place. It will smell the grass here, there, suddenly jump and go to the other place. You know that there is always some amount of activity. It's a very agile animal. It will never stay at a single place. This deer seems to be showing characteristics that is not significant of a natural deer. So please don't ask for it. It is not a good, something wrong, something is amiss. Probably it is some kind of an asura. Sita continues. She says, no, I want this deer. And Rama also tells Lakshmana, it's okay Lakshmana, let me go. Sita has never asked for anything. This probably is the only thing that she has asked. Let me go and fulfill her desire. Now let me just break for a minute. This is where probably even Vyakyankars also take a pause and they characterize. They say what is actually happening. Those two people who are considered to be the most matured in Ramayana, the most poised in Ramayana, the people with the least desire, when Rama was told within hours that this kingdom is not yours and you have to go to forest, without a flinch of an eye, he just walked away. Sita said, wherever you are, I am going to be there. She gives away all the prosperity of a kingdom and a princess and walks with him. These two people have behaved in a manner which is very different, right? Sita is suddenly engulfed with a desire which seems unnatural of her. Lakshmana, who is otherwise a very impulsive person, who's at the fall of a hat will pick his arms and start going for a war, is now showing a lot of restraint and maturity, right? So there's a swap of roles that has happened. Next level, what actually happens is Ravana. Vyakyankars will generally compare the desire that comes in. Ravana had a similar desire of having Sita for himself, and he comes with that desire. Sita also had the same desire, similar, of having a deer, and Rama also had a desire of fulfilling the desire of Sita. So what turned out to be the befalling of all these three was the desire, right? What happens is when you have a desire, say for example, we end up having a desire, I want to buy the latest iPhone, right? When I have a desire that comes into me and it comes strongly, logic will beat me. I will never ever be able to logically reason out whether I really require that costlier piece of gadget on my hand. Once I have that feeling that I need to possess that, then logic is thrown out of the window. Then the reasoning will be such that it will be biased. It will always fall in line, is as if I need to have it. What do you do in such a scenario? One should always lean on a person who doesn't have that desire. A well-wisher, a brother, a wife, a husband, or a son, or parents, or friends. So what you end up doing is you generally lean on somebody, take their view and then go ahead. Because they are not engulfed with the desire, they will probably be able to reason out either for or against the desire and tell you whether the desire is right or wrong. What Rama and Sita displayed here is basically they didn't pay heed to Lakshmana's advice. What Ravana did also is the same. He didn't pay heed to Maricha's advice, right? So in this sense, both Ravana and Rama and Sita, although they are on the opposite sides, they get beaten by what is the common enemy for everybody, and that is desire, right? So Lakshmana says, stop Rama, don't go, it seems to be something unnatural. Rama says, no, I will go ahead. So Rama now begins. He starts running after the deer. Maricha is doing his job properly. That's his JD, right? His job description, that he's supposed to ensure that he takes Rama so far away that Ravana can then come and do the abduction easily. So he goes far off, and then Maricha, that is the deer, starts showing its true colors. What it does, at one point of time, it's at a particular distance, suddenly it vanishes and goes, and he finds it's on the other side. And then again vanishes from there and goes on the other side. Rama realizes that he is up against a demon. But still Rama goes after it, because with the dharma that he might want to kill the demon. He might want to ensure that the demon is anyway killed. So now he starts running after the deer, not to catch it, but to kill it. Maricha now takes Rama very much far away. What happens here is, there's a sudden dark cloud that comes in, a lot of birds fluttering and flying in a particular direction. This is something that I've told, it indicates of a Shakuna Shastra. Lakshmana reads it immediately and he says, there is some calamity that is going to come to us. We have to ensure that we are careful. Okay? And he says to his sister-in-law, Bhabi, you go inside, there is some calamity probably that's going to come. As soon as he utters this, there's a loud wail that they hear, the loud cry that they hear. Hey Sita, hey Lakshmana. And it's in the voice of Rama. Okay? And they hear this loud cry from a very distant place. Lakshmana immediately understands there is something that has gone wrong. Sita also understands there is something gone wrong, and Sita feels that something has gone wrong with Rama. So immediately says, Lakshmana, Rama seems to be in danger. You immediately go and help him out. Lakshmana says, hold on. There is nothing in this world that can happen that is wrong to Rama. You do not worry at all. He is safe. This seems to be a ploy of a demon. I told you that deer was a demon. This seems to be a ploy of the demon. You do not fall for it. I know my brother. He is not going to be in danger. Please restrain yourself and you go into the hut. Sita, in the moment of calamity, starts uttering and behaving completely irrationally. Okay? And this is what happens. Now, why do Sita or Rama behave in this particular illogical manner in this particular parva? It only shows how we as humans behave, right? It shows what we are not supposed to do. It's a model for us. It shows how we are supposed to behave, and if we behave in this particular manner, what will happen to us. That is what they are showing through this Leela. Sita starts uttering bad things for Lakshmana. She says, oh Lakshmana, is this why you came to forest, so that you could see Rama getting killed? She doesn't stop there. She says, maybe Shatrughna and Bharata also have colluded with you, and they also wanted Rama to be killed so that you all can distribute the entire kingdom for yourself. Is this why you did this whole act of being so brother devoted? Lakshmana says, Bhabi, no, it is not like that. You please hold yourself, please be poised, don't worry, nothing has happened to Rama. Sita doesn't stop there. Sita goes on to the next level, and which is fairly blasphemous for Lakshmana. She says, you had a bad intention about me, and that is the reason you want Rama to be killed. Is it so, Lakshmana, is what she asks. Lakshmana completely breaks down. He says, Bhabi, I hold you like my mother. You are even more dearer to me than even my own mother Sumitra. That is the whole way in which I have served you. What makes you say such cruel words of me? And he says, having heard this kind of a character assassination, it will be very difficult for me to now stay here anymore. So please allow me to leave, is what Lakshmana says. Let us take a pause here again. Somebody as great as Sita, why would she behave like this? When calamity falls on us, all our reasoning, all our poise, all our ability to think logically will always go out of the window. This is a common person's behavior, like we would behave, like any other normal person would behave. What are we supposed to do at such point of time is, as I said in the earlier one, lean on people who are your well-wishers, right? Ask for their advice, because only those who are outside the calamity will be able to think clearly. So I'll give you an example. When I was down with COVID, this 1 year ago, My brother used to call me daily and used to guide me. So what needs to be done, what need not be done, be careful, do take these medicines, ensure that you take it in this gap, read your fever, be attentive on your symptoms and stuff like that. This is what he did for me. My brother got COVID a couple of months back and I did the same thing to him but I did the same thing for him. So my son came asking me, saying that what is it that you're doing? He's the one who helped you when you were under COVID. Why do you have to go? What is the need for you to tell him what needs to be done? He of course knows it. I said, no, when a person is in calamity, his ability to think clearly will be clouded. He will not be able to think logically. He would need, even if he knows what needs to be done, he would need a confirmation from somebody who is not under the same calamity to guide him, whether the path of action is correct, whether something else needs to be done apart from this. So this generally needs to be done. There is a person need to help, and that will generally be a neighbor, could be a brother, could be whoever is not going through that calamity. Sita should have listened to Lakshmana, but she failed to listen to Lakshmana. They are basically in an avatar mode. They are behaving like humans. They are behaving like humans because there is an avatar karya to be done. At the same time, it also is a moral for us. It's a moral for us to show as to how we should not behave when under calamity. That's the moral message that comes to us. There's also a saying which says, Sita got ruined because of her desire and Draupadi got ruined because of her laughter. Sita got ruined because of the desire of the deer. Draupadi got ruined because the way she laughed mockingly on Duryodhana in Indraprastha. I don't know if you are aware of Mahabharata story. The Kauravas come and visit Pandavas at Indraprastha, and Indraprastha is something that has been done by Mayasura, I told you last time. So somewhere it looks like land but it's actually water, and some place it will look like water but actually it is land. So he thought it's land and he falls into a pool of water. Duryodhana falls and Draupadi from a balcony laughs at Duryodhana, and that laughter causes all the befalling for Draupadi. The moment Duryodhana hears Draupadi laugh at him mockingly, he makes a promise for himself that he will avenge for that laughter. And of course the rest we know what happened to Draupadi and what Duryodhana did. So we need to be careful when we laugh, when we desire, we need to be careful of what we do. These are the messages that we get from our Puranas. So what happens is, now Lakshmana leaves that place. The common belief that has been around is Lakshman Rekha, right? Lakshmana drawing a circle with his sword across the house, and he says, don't cross this line, nothing bad will happen to you if you don't cross this line. Both in Valmiki Ramayana and if I am not wrong, even in Ramcharitramanas, Lakshman Rekha doesn't find any place. This seems to be a fiction of mind of all the Ramanand sagas of the world. Okay, so technically there is no Lakshman Rekha. I will anyway cover Lakshman Rekha because it has the bhakti element in it. It feels good. There is an X amount of devotion that comes into it. So there is a Lakshman Rekha that he draws and goes is a part of it. But technically what Lakshmana really did is that he shouts loud and he says, let the Devis and the Devas of the forest, the gods of the forest protect you. Vanadevata, let her protect you, Sita. You go into the house, don't come out of the house at all, and the gods will protect you. That is what he says. And he shouts and says, and then he starts off in the direction in which the voice, the wailing came from. This shout of Lakshmana gets heard by Jatayu. If you remember, I told Jatayu was close by in the vicinity. So the moment Lakshmana shouts that let Vanadevata take care of you, he comes. The Jatayu doesn't come. He hears this and he is alert now, saying Sita probably might need my help in case there is a problem. Right? Now Lakshmana begins his journey in search of Rama, where from the direction in which the noise came. Let Lakshmana travel in that direction. We'll come where we'll be there where Sita is. As Lakshmana left from this side, there is a Brahmin, there is a Rishi who comes. There is a fake sadhu. Probably Ravana was the first instance of fake sannyasi. Today we find a lot of fake sannyasis. Maybe Ravana was the first of them who showed them a path. So he comes in the form of a Rishi and he says Bhiksham Dehi, which means give me Bhiksha. Bhiksham Dehi, Dehi means give. And he holds his vessel. Now Sita is still inside the house. She is not coming out of the house. Now Ravana actually calls out saying that how is it that you can remain in the house and give a bhiksha? It is against dharma and you are supposed to come out and give me the bhiksha. Sita, even under distress, even under the fact that she is under calamity, ensures that she does her dharma of giving the bhiksha. So she gets some fruits on a platter and she is about to put it. Now Sita could have just kept quiet, okay? But then Sita, being a person in distress, starts giving her sob story to a person completely stranger. She did not have done that, right? Now Ravana is a stranger. Whoever that Brahman or that Rishi is a stranger. Sita starts off her sob story. I was born to Janaka, then I got married to Rama, and then I was thrown out of the house, and we've been loitering in jungle for the last 14 years, and my husband is now gone for a deer, and I don't know what has happened to him. She's all talking all of this under a lot of distress to a person who's a stranger. Now this emboldens Ravana. Ravana now suddenly becomes boldened, and he, as soon as she gives this platter of fruits, Ravana asks, "This is not enough. I need something more." So Sita asks, "What else do you need?" Ravana then shows his true form and he says, "I need you." He holds her by her hair and by her neck and lifts and puts her into the Pushpaka Viman. He's got his airplane, private charter plane, which was taken away from Kubera, right? That Pushpaka Viman, he puts her into that, and then he starts flying. This is how Valmiki Ramayana is covered. Kamba Ramayana is covered it with little more respect. So what Kamba Ramayana says is that he doesn't touch Sita, he lifts the entire piece of land on which the house is there. So he lifts Sita with the house, puts it onto the Pushpak Viman and takes it with him, and takes her with him. Now Sita is all crying. In that whole the manner in which he picked her up, the flowers that she was wearing starts falling. They all get strewn down on the road, on the path, and they take their flight. She's crying to the Godavari river, she's crying to the trees, "Please save me, is there anybody else who can save me? I am in distress." And that's how she's crying and she's going. After a while in the flight, there's turbulence. Now what is the turbulence? Jatayu comes in, Jatayu with his wings, is flapping. So his plane is already in air turbulence. So then he finds a huge eagle in front of him. Jatayu then speaks to Ravana. He says, "I am also a king, and listen to me, you are also king of Asuras, I am king of vultures. From a king to another king, I am advising you that don't do this. She is a pious lady, she is wife of Prabhu Sri Ram. Drop her here itself and you go, don't do this sin." Ravana is in no mood to hear, right? He is completely clouded. The moment he sees Sita, I forgot to tell you that, the moment he sees Sita, he finds her 100 times more beautiful than what Shurpanakha had expressed about her. So he is completely smitten by her. He is not in any mood to listen to anybody. So he removes his Chandrahas, the sword that has been given by Shiva himself, and he starts fighting with Jatayu. Jatayu bravely fights, but Jatayu is an old eagle, and Ravana is in his prime, right? So, and Chandrahas is an extremely powerful weapon. Ravana even otherwise is a very powerful demon. There's a huge battle that happens, but the result is known. Jatayu falls, and he falls fatally wounded, falls down. They continue their journey. As they continue their journey, they are crossing, now they are in Maharashtra, right? You have to understand the geography. They are in Maharashtra, they will now cross Karnataka, they will now cross Tamil Nadu and then cross over to Lanka, right? This is the direction in which they have to cross. So as they cross Maharashtra and get into Karnataka, they cross over the land called Kishkinda, okay? And there a mountain called Rishyamukh Parvat. Rishyamukh is the name of the mountain. As they cross that particular mountain, Sita sees a few Vanar. Vanar means those who live in a Van. Van means forest. Nar means men. So those men who live in a forest are called Vanar. So they are more like primates, primitive people. So Vanar doesn't necessarily means monkey. They are basically primitive people. So they see a few, she sees a few Vanar. Who are these Vanar? They are basically Sugriv, Hanuman, Nala and Nila and Jambavan. Jambavan of course is a bear. They are sitting on the top of the Rishamukh Parvat. She takes her jewels that Atri, Anasuya had given to her. She takes those jewels, tears her sari at the pallu, ties it and throws it down. And she's crying, please help me, please help me. They are not able to hear her voice, but they got the drop that she gave, the jewels that were dropped there. Now Ravana has taken his journey, he crosses the Kishkinda airspace. Kishkinda is now ruled by Vali, right? He has actually used Kishkinda's airspace to cross over. Vali comes out and sees and he knows Ravana is doing something wrong, but he keeps quiet because it is Ravana and they have a secret pact of not doing anything. He crosses over to Tamil Nadu and then crosses into Lanka. He takes her into her palace. Once he is into the palace, he gets into the apartments and he instructs all the guards and everybody over there. She said, this is the most important guest that I have got. Everybody is supposed to look after her and her utterance of any wish is an order for you all. Ensure that she is at her happiest. And he is actually dragging her and showing all his wealth and his palace. Look at this palace, how big it is and how beautiful it is. Look at my wealth, look at my power. You just get married to me and you'll be married to the most powerful person. You don't worry that puny Rama can do nothing about it, is what he's telling to Sita. After all the tour of his palace, Sita just smirks and she says, you are talking of power. Do you even know who I am? I am Dasharatha's daughter-in-law and the most powerful person's wife. You go and give me back to him. He will at least stand a chance to being pardoned. Otherwise, be sure that you are going to get killed. Hearing this, Ravana is very upset. He says, I have been showing so much respect. He thinks this as respect. So he's saying, I am showing so much respect and I am wanting you to marry me and you are saying that your husband will come and kill me. What a common man can do to me. And he goes to his guards and says, keep her in the Ashok Van and ensure that you leave all the wives and daughters of all your asuras so that they can by hook or crook convince her to get her married to me. He cannot force himself. This is something that I covered last time, right? Because of a curse that he has on him, he can't force himself on a woman. So she has to consent on the marriage and only then Ravana can marry. So they take her to Ashokavan. Now what is Ashokavan? Ashokavan is the most beautiful garden. It's not the most beautiful garden in Lanka. It is the most beautiful garden across the world. It is called as Ashokavana because the moment you enter that garden, whatever sorrow is there in your mind will vanish. The whole pleasantness of that garden will make you so happy. Ashoka means the place where there is no shok, no sorrow. It's a place where there will be no sorrow at all. It seems when Hanuman himself enters, I'll come to that part in Sundarakaand, when he enters with lot of sorrow, that is not able to find Sita, the moment he enters Ashokvan, he becomes happy. Okay, that kind of an effect that garden has, but it doesn't have any effect on Sita because Sita is in a different level of sorrow. She goes and they sit under a tree there, and then he sends all the wives and daughters of Asuras, all ugly looking and pestering Sita and saying, what are you doing? If Ravana were to give us a proposal, we will get married any day. And he is offering you to be made the main Rani. He is offering himself to become a slave of you and you are not accepting his proposal. You have to do this, you have to do that. So they are pestering. Then comes an important lady amongst those ladies who is called as Trijata. Okay, Trijata basically means a lady with 3 plaits. Okay, Jata means plait, person with 3 plaits. She happens to be Ravana's younger brother Vibhishana's daughter. Okay, Trijata is a devotee of Shiva and Trijata is a nice lady. So she drives these demonesses all aside and she says, don't trouble her, let her be what she is doing, let her just remain, let her just leave her at peace. She comes and speaks softly to her and she says, don't worry, I am in charge of the entire security for you. They will not trouble you, you don't worry. And that is what Trijata does to Sita, she calms her for a moment. So all of this is happening in Lanka. Sita has settled, okay, not really settled mentally, but has at least reached Lanka. we'll leave her there for a while and we'll catch up with what Lakshmana has done now. So Lakshmana is in search of Rama, right? There's a voice that they hear and Lakshmana is now reaching Rama. Lakshmana now reaches Rama and he says, the moment he sees there is a demon that is fallen there and Rama is just taking some rest, because he's run for a long time. He sees Lakshmana and he's now alarmed. Lakshmana says, what happened? This was the demon who did all this. He said, I told you. Rama immediately asks Lakshmana, how come you are here? Who's there with Sita? And then suddenly it strikes. There's something that is amiss. If Lakshmana is here, which means something bad has happened to Sita, they both rush. They both rush to the spot. But of course, we know what is there. There's just scattered fruits and flowers and nothing else there, right? So everything is strewn across the land and there's nothing else. Rama is completely sunken in sorrow. He says, I don't know what has happened to my Sita. Is there some animal that has eaten up or is there an asura that has abducted her? We don't know what has happened and he starts crying like a child. Okay, absolutely like a child. He goes to each of the tree and he's asking the trees, have you seen my Sita? Has anybody taken him? Goes to Godavari river and he asks, Godavari river, have you seen my Sita? Which direction has she gone? Technically, Godavari had the ability to answer, but Godavari chooses to remain silent out of the fear to Ravana rather than the devotion to Rama. It seems because Godavari did this, although Godavari was considered as equivalent to Ganga, her place in pure rivers gets fallen a little. She is no more as pure as Ganga because she out of fear doesn't speak of and help Rama out of fear of Ravana. He's all wailing and crying. Lakshmana is trying his best to console and he says, whatever has happened has happened. Now let us try and find Sita. That has to be our objective. Now we need to ensure that we put all our efforts and thoughts in finding Sita rather than really sitting and crying of what has happened. Rama composes himself and then they start thinking. Now you have to understand from Rama and Lakshmana. They don't know who's come and gone. They don't know which direction Sita has gone. Right? So it's like a mystery, like a murder mystery that we see in TV. Right? So now evidences have to be unraveled in a manner and from Rama and Lakshmana's perspective. We know the story where Sita has gone. But Rama and Lakshmana don't know where she is gone. Right? So now we need to understand the story from Rama and Lakshmana's side as to how they unravel the entire event and reach Lanka. So now from now onwards, it will be an unraveling of each of the evidence that they get and how at different points of time they get the evidence and they start moving in the right direction. So the first, just give me a sec. So the first evidence that they get is the flowers that Rama had given to Sita for her wrist, for her ankle, are all strewn in a particular direction. They are all fallen on the land, but they are all in one direction. The footstep and the ruffle that they can see is all in a particular direction. So they realize that it is in this direction probably that Sita has gone. They don't know whether it is gone by air, by land, they still don't know. So they start walking in that direction. They say probably when we walk in that direction, we might at least come across something in terms of an evidence. As they start walking in that direction, who's the first person that they find? It is a fatally wounded Jatayu, right? So the Jatayu who's almost about to die, is heaving heavily and is breathing heavily. Rama runs to him. He keeps Jatayu's head on his lap and his hand on his heart, and he says, "What happened to you?" And Jatayu completely tells all the story. He says, Ravana had come, he's picked up your wife, and he's gone in this direction, is all he says. And I tried to fight Rama, but I could not. I'm an old eagle, and he's a powerful demon. I tried my best, and I've got fatally wounded. Rama starts crying. He says, "You are like my second father, and I'm so sorry that you had to put your life at my service." And hearing this, Jatayu dies. Now Rama actually gives moksha to Jatayu. Okay, I'll spend a couple of minutes here. Rama is in a form as a human, right? So he doesn't know his God. But for this moment, he removes the wheel and he ensures that Jatayu gets moksha. Now Jatayu actually is inflicted by 3 discs. So there is only some people who can get moksha. Okay, you have to have the eligibility to get moksha. Just as you need to have eligibility to get moksha, there are also certain disqualifications which, if exist, will ensure that you will not get moksha. But and Jatayu had 3 of such disqualifications. But still Rama ensured and gave moksha. So I will cover those 3 disqualifications and why Rama still ensured that he gave moksha. So one of the disqualifications that Jatayu had, okay, is basically he is a scavenger, right? He is a, just give me a second. By nature he is a vulture. So he is not eating things that he kills. He eats only dead people, right? So by nature he is a vulture, he is a scavenger. So that is the first disqualification. It's a very low life. Vulture is a very low life in the hierarchy of evolution. The second disqualification that he had is Jatayu apparently never ever did any devotion. He never did any bhakti at all his life. Although he was born in a very great family, he belonged to a great family. His uncle was Garuda himself, who is the Vahan for Vishnu. His father is Aruna, who is a charioteer for Surya himself. But he himself never did any devotion. And the third disqualification is, it is called as Agrahatya. Okay, Agrahatya means a person. Okay, so what happens is, in our culture, we know there are different castes, right? Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shaiva. So I am not being casteist, but I will anyway cover this in the Saints session. I have already covered this in detail. In brief, I will just cover. Brahmins have a duty. They have a duty to take care of the society by doing service. What is the service they do? The service they do is of doing Veda Ghosh. That is what they are supposed to do. They are not supposed to accumulate wealth. They are not supposed to have any power. All they are supposed to do is use their knowledge for the benefit of the society. What is the duty of the society? The duty of the society is to take care of them so that they don't, go on to having any issues in eating food or with their basic necessities. This is the duty of the world, that society, to take care of the Brahmins. So by nature, a Brahmin is considered feeble, a person who cannot protect himself, right? And hence, a person who ends up killing a Brahmin becomes covered by a dosha, by a sin called Brahma Hatya. Okay? So that sin is very great sin. One should never end up killing a Brahmin. Okay? Why? Because he is a person who can't even defend himself. A feeble Brahmin, if killed, then gets covered under Brahma Hatya. Similarly, the opposite is Agrahatya, which means where you have pushed a Brahmin to a limit where the Brahmin had to pick up weapon in order to protect himself and kill you. So one person gets killed by a Brahmin, the dosha that person who gets killed gets covered under Agrahatya. Okay? The reason I had to cover this, in today's world it is a difficult concept to explain. Okay? I am not being casteist. The only reason why I explain this is because to understand that a Brahmin otherwise is a feeble, powerless person. He cannot take care of himself. His duty is only to do Veda Ghosh. Okay? And it is the duty of the Kshatriya to take care of a Brahmin. Or that is his duty to take care of all his subjects. Now how come Jatayu became an Agrahatyan? Because Ravana was a Brahmin and because he kills Jatayu, Jatayu gets the dosh of being an Agrahatyan. Okay? So he had these 3 disqualifications, and in spite of those 3 disqualifications, Rama chose to give moksha to Jatayu. Why? Because he laid his life for the sake of dharma. Now the moral that we get out of this is, however sinful we are in our entire life, even if for a fraction of a second we think of God, even if a fraction of a second we offer ourselves completely, it is not just think, but completely and wholly and solely for the cause of God. And if you think about God, God will always ensure that He comes to our support. I will cover this aspect, just hold on to this aspect as of now. This aspect in Vaishnava Dharma is called as Sharanagati. Sharanagati in Vaishnava Dharma is one level notch above Bhakti also. I will come to that. when we cover Vibhishana's story, when he comes and meets Ravana, I will come to this aspect in detail. Okay? Here Jatayu has done that Sharanagati. He offered himself, his own life for the sake of Rama, and for that act alone, Rama chose to give Jatayu moksha. Now they leave from that particular place. I will quickly cover the next two stories. I have 10 minutes and I need to cover this part so that in the next session I have another important part to cover. As they go down, so now they have come to know who's taken, right? The next evidence that they got is now they know who's taken, and Jatayu has also told the direction in which Ravana has gone. So now they start moving in that particular direction. As they start moving in that direction, suddenly there are two arms that come pick up Rama and Lakshmana, and starts taking it towards his mouth. They suddenly in their anguish realize that it is a huge demon. So they realize this demon has to be killed. In their moment of anguish also they collect themselves and they kill that demon. They kill that demon. This demon is called Kabanda. Again, this demon is basically a cursed Gandharva who's there on earth. And he is about to die. The moment he is about to die, he realizes that only Rama and Lakshmana who will come in this direction, can actually relieve him of his curse, which is what Indra has told him. So Indra says, you will get cursed and live like a demon, but Rama and Lakshmana will come in the direction, they will kill you and then you will get relieved. So he realizes that it is Rama and Lakshmana and he says, can I be of any help? So Rama says, Sita, my wife was taken away by Ravana, I need some help. He said, yes, I also saw Ravana has taken her. You have to do this. And this is what Kabanda tells. He says, go to Rishyamukh Parvat. There, Bali's younger brother Sugriva is in exile. You go and befriend him. He will be of great help for you, Rama. And he will also help you find Sita. You alone cannot find Sita. You would need the help of Sugriva. It is Kabanda, the demon who is about to die, who gives the direction and advice of going and meeting Sugriva, so that then he can meet Sugriva and go ahead find Sita. As they now start moving ahead, they are now near the Pampa river. Okay, the Pampa river, and after Pampa river, then you will have the Rishyamukh Parvat. They are now walking in this particular direction. Now comes the most important part in Ramayana, which is the Shabari Moksha, okay, which is full of devotion. I will quickly cover this story. This story is a very unique story of devotion of a lady for Rama. So who's Shabari? Let me cover a brief about her, even as Rama and Lakshmana are walking on their path. Shabari is a daughter of a hunter, okay, but as from her pravritti, which is her characteristic, is that of an ascetic. The king, that is her father, wanted her to get married, but she didn't want to marry anybody. So she runs away from the marriage and she is roaming in the forest. As she is roaming in the forest, in a distance, she sees a rishi who is doing puja and a lot of disciples around him who are doing a lot of pujas and daily anushtan and stuff like that. And she is hiding herself and seeing it from a distance. This rishi is Matanga Rishi. Okay, Matanga Rishi is a very great rishi. What happens is this Matanga Rishi and all his disciples, after they finish their puja, they go to the nearby river, Pampa river, and they take bath and then they come back. As these people have gone there, what Shabari does is she comes to the place and she completely tidy up the place. Flowers fallen somewhere, fruits fallen somewhere. They have just done the puja and they have gone. They have not really tidy up the entire place. Shabari comes, cleans up the entire place into a sparkling, beautiful place and then goes and hides again. Matanga Rishi comes, all the disciples come and they are all asking, who did this? Everybody is asking each other, did you do this, did you do this? And then they are not bothered, okay, somebody has done it, they are not really bothered. But Matanga Rishi realizes that there is somebody who has done this. And he realizes that there is this lady called Shabari who is doing this. And he doesn't tell anything because Shabari, because she comes from a low caste, she cannot come in the presence of everybody, because the moment she comes, everybody will then start chiding her and she will not be able to do this service. So Matanga Rishi also knows that this is a service that she wants to offer to him, and he allows her to do that, doesn't disclose the secret at all, and for years at stretch, Shabari has been doing this secret service. Shabari actually in itself as a means somebody who does service completely without others knowing. So person who does secret service, so even today when people do, a lot of people do this self-effacing service. They will do a service and they'll go and stand in a corner as if nobody, they have no role in that at all. People who do that kind of service are called as Shabari. Only Shabari could do that kind of a service. An excellent service for years together Shabari did for Matanga Rishi. Matanga Rishi is now old and is about to leave his mortal body. And he calls all his disciples and he says, now I'm going to heaven. Do you all want to come? Nobody is going to come, right? However strong the disciple is, nobody wants to go to heaven. They say, no, you tell us something else. So you do this, you ask me whatever that you want, whatever vidya, whatever education that I have, whatever powers that I have, I will distribute all to you all and then go. So somebody asks the mantra for wealth, somebody for health, somebody for arms, somebody for something else. So each of them gets distributed and they all go. Everybody has left Matanga Rishi. Matanga Rishi then calls Shabari, who's hiding and watching all this. He calls her and he says, I am about to leave. What is it that you want? Shabari says, what do I do living here without you, Guru? If you are going, call me also, I'll also come with you. He becomes very happy. He says, no, you still have life. He waits for a while, he thinks in dhyan mode and he says, you will have a darshan of your God. He says, who's my God? He says, Sri Ram himself will come and give you darshan. So Shabari asks, where do I go to get his darshan? He says, no, you don't have to go anywhere. You have done so much amount of service, Shabari, that you stay here. God himself will walk a distance and come and give you darshan. The moment he gives darshan, that is the day you will get your moksha. And he says, I have already reserved a place for you in heaven. Don't worry, the moment you are done with your darshan, you come. From that day onwards, for years together, Shabari has been doing this as a daily job. What she does, she goes to a tree, she collects some berries, okay, which in Hindi we call as bear, okay. She collects these berries, she tastes it, finds it whether they are good, sweet, nice. She waits for Rama. He doesn't come for the entire day. In the night she used to eat it, sleep. In the morning again go collect berries, eat a few, check whether they are sweet and nice and worthy of offering to Rama, wait for Rama and then go to sleep. Like this she is done for years together. Now what has happened is in a daily course what she does is Shabari also goes to a particular pond to take bath. She goes at a time which is where nobody else is awake. So around 3 o'clock, so nobody is awake, nobody knows that she comes there because she is a low caste. Once what happens is when she is about to take bath, one of the disciples of another guru sees her and he picks a stone and throws at her. That stone comes and hits her leg. She starts slightly bleeding at that particular place and that blood starts falling into that lake. That entire lake gets filled with blood. It turns into red, completely full of blood. Shabari, without minding that, because she's got hurt, she walks away into her hut, rushes into her hut, and she's tending to her wound. These guys are all petrified. The entire lake has become a pool of blood, and they don't know what can be done. They try giving all mantras. They call their guru. They do their mantras and things. Nothing is changing. It continues to remain red blood. Somebody comes and tells them that Rama and Lakshmana are on their way, and they know what Rama had done to Ahalya. The moment Rama had touched his feet on Ahalya, Ahalya from a rock becomes a woman. So they know only Rama can do this. So they call Rama and Lakshmana there. And Rama and Lakshmana, the moment Rama and Lakshmana come, they say, Rama, please touch your feet. This has become blood red. Rama touches his feet, nothing happens. They say, okay, you come and take a bath here. Rama dips himself completely. Nothing happens. Rama comes out and asks, tell me, what is that has happened here? One of the disciples of that guru comes and tells, this is what happened. There is a lady, a low caste lady, who called Shabari, and she came and took bath here. I hit her, and the blood fell here, and that is the reason it has become like this. Well, this is not going to get cured by me at all. You have done a wrong deed to a great devotee. The only way to turn this back to water is getting her. So they all go and get her, and Shabari comes and just touches. She actually doesn't even touch. Valmiki Ramayana says, the dust from her leg just falls into the lake and immediately turns into water. Shabari sees Rama and Lakshmana and is in tears. She says, Rama, Lakshmana, I have been waiting for this moment for years together. You have to come and partake the Nevedya that I want to give you. So Rama and Lakshmana walk with her. This is a famous instance where Shabari bites into each berry and gives. She was testing that each berry is sweet or no. She is testing each berry and giving it to Rama. Rama, who's considered as Acharashil, which means he will not have food cooked by even others. Forget eating food cooked by others. This is defiled, right? This is uchishtha, right? Uchishtha means jo jhuta hua hai. Somebody has already eaten it. Rama will never have it, but Rama eats it out of sheer devotion, out of the kind of devotion that Shabari is showing. He eats those berries and blesses Shabari. There are two versions to this. I covered the Bhakti Ras version. The actual version is, see, when we go to a market, right? When we go to a market and we want to pick a kg of grapes, what do? We pick one grape from the bunch, we eat it, and we say, give this bunch. Okay? We don't eat each of it and say it is sweet, right? We eat one of it, we taste it, and we say, okay, this is a good one, seems to be a good bunch, it will be sweet. This is exactly what Shabari did. She used to pick one berry, eat fully, and say, okay, so this bunch is okay and can be offered. Okay? So, technically what she has done is, yes, it is called as Uchishta because before offering to God, I have told you the rules of Nevedya, right? When you offer something to your God, you are not supposed to taste it at all. The moment you have tasted even one part of it, you might have not given that part to the God, but you have tasted that one part, that itself has defiled, that itself means that has become Uchishta. Okay? So technically she has offered an Uchishta as Nevedya, but this doesn't have the color of Bhakti, right? The beauty of Bhakti is that it should be beautiful to hear. And I prefer the story where Shabari bit a part of the berry and gave that part to Rama, and Rama, out of sheer acceptance of the devotion and of the years of service that Shabari has put in place, he accepts that half-bitten berry and eats it and blesses Shabari. Shabari takes moksha. Rama gave moksha to Jatayu. In case of Shabari, he witnessed the moksha because Shabari was a great devotee. Matanga Rishi himself had offered moksha, right? Rama was no one to offer moksha to Shabari at all. So what happens is, immediately she falls at Rama's feet and gives away her life. That is how Shabari goes to where Matanga Rishi is. This is the story of Shabari, the beautiful devotee of Rama. Now what happens is, they now start their journey towards Rishyamukh Parvat. They cross the Pampa river. They take their holy dip. Pampa river is a very holy place, holy river. They take their bath there and they cross the river, and now their mind is also freshened. They saw Shabari, the devotion that she has shown. They are now far more freshened up, and now they are also thinking very clearly. I will stop the story here today because next week is where the devotee, the greatest devotee that we know of, will meet his God. Hanuman will meet Rama. I will also spend some time on covering who Sugriva is, who Vali is, and who Nala is, who Neera is, and the reason why they have taken also avatar. I will cover as part of that also. That's a beautiful part that is going to come now. Hanuman is going to come in the scene, and the moment Hanuman comes, he will just change the scene completely 180 degrees. Right? That is what Hanuman is. So next session will be the beautiful session of Hanuman meeting Rama, and then how they plan the next level of action to reach Sita. Right? I will stop the story with the beautiful story of Shabari and her devotion to Rama. Hope I was clear, audible, right? Yeah? Great. Any questions you all have, feel free to ask. Otherwise, we can go ahead with our Hanuman Chalisa. Hanuman Chalisa? Shri Guru Charan Saroj Raja Nij Mana Mukur Sudhari Varno Raghuvar Vimal Jashu Jodaya Kubalachari Buddhihin Tanu Janike Sumiro Pavan Kumar Bala Buddhi Vidya Dehu Mohe Haro जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर, जय कपीश तिहु लोक उजागर। रामदूत अतुलित बल धामा, अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा। महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी, कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी। कंचन वरण विराज सुबेसा, कानन कुंडल कुंचित केसा। हाथ ब्रज और ध्वजा विराजे, कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साजे। शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन, तेज प्रताप महाजगवंदन। विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर, राम काज करिबे को आतुर। प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया, राम लखन सीता मन बसिया। सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा, विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा। भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे, रामचंद्र के काज संवारे। लाए सजीवन लखन जियाए, श्री रघुबीर हर्षि उर लाए। रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बढ़ाई, तुम मम प्रिय भरत सम भाई। सहस बदन तुमरो यश गावे, अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे। सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा, नारद सारद सहित अहिसा। यम कुबेर दिगपाल जहाते, कवि कोविद कहि सके कहाते। तुम उपकार सुग्रीवहि कीन्हा, राम मिलाए राजपद दीना। तुमरो मंत्र विभीषण माना, लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना। सहस्र योजन पर भानु, लील्यो ताहि मधुर फल जानू। प्रभु मुद्रिका मेलि मुख माहि, राम गए अचरज नाही। दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते, सुगम अनुग्रह तुम्हरे तेते। राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे, होत न आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे। सब सुख लहै तुम्हारी सरना, तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना। आपन तेज समारो आपै, लोक हांकते कापै। भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे, महावीर जब नाम सुनावे। नासे रोग हरै सब पीरा, जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा। संकट ते हनुमान छुड़ावे, मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे। सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा। और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, सोहि अमित जीवन फल पावे। चारों जुग परताप तुम्हारा, है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा। साधु संत के तुम रखवारे, असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे। अष्ट सिद्धि नव निधि के दाता, असवर दीन जानकी माता। राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा, सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा। तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे। अंत काल रघुवरपुर जाई, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई। और देवता चित्त न धरई, हनुमत से ही सर्व सुख करई। संकट कटै मिटै सब पीड़ा, जो सुमिरै हनुमत बलबीरा। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई। ये शत बार पाठ कर कोई, छूट ही बंदी महा सुख होई। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होए सिद्धि साखी गौरी सा। तुलसीदास सदा है चेरा, कीजय नाथ हृदय मडेरा। पवन तनय संकट हरन, मंगल मूर्ति रूप। राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसहु सुर भूप। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। के बोलो हनुमान की जय। धन्यवाद।